Hey everyone, it's Chris Loud. If you're thinking this doesn't look like a landscape painting, you're right. This didn't start out as a landscape. It actually began as an expressive and chaotic abstract painting. I was just playing around with bold marks and color and trying to loosen up, but pretty quickly I realized it wasn't really going anywhere. So I went ahead and changed course. I'll briefly show you the last bit of the first painting, which I'd been experimenting with a combination of bright aqua green, yellow ochre, and alizarin crimson. Three colors that don't naturally feel like they belong together. Yellow ochre and alizarin crimson, sure, but the bright aqua green with those, not so much. I also used Mars black and titanium white. And that's actually something I've been trying to embrace more in my process, working with colors that might not seem to go together. It forces me to get creative with how I balance contrast, harmony, and mood. Even when it feels awkward at first, something really interesting can emerge when we push past our comfort zone. But when I felt I was not on with this piece, I started reaching and added some cadmium yellow water-based spray paint and a little newsprint. But I felt that made it flop even more. So, like I said, I changed directions. I decided to paint over this and to lean into a more scenic, abstract landscape. I didn't want to lose everything from the underpainting, though, so I allowed a few spots of it to peek through in the final piece, giving it, that layered and textured feeling. So at the end of the video, I'll show you some close-ups and the final painting, as well as another very similar version that's a little more expressive with bolder brushstrokes. So as I started building the new piece, I was thinking about the work of Joan Eardley. If you're not familiar with her, she was a Scottish painter in the mid-1900s who's become one of my favorites lately. Her landscapes, especially those of the Scottish coast and countryside, have this raw emotional power. She used thick paint, expressive marks, and often painted right out in the elements. So like painting the coast as a storm was approaching. There's so much movement and atmosphere in her work, and I love how she captured the feeling of a place rather than just the details. So that idea really stuck with me. So instead of trying to paint something specific, I just let the scenery unfold intuitively, kind of, channeling some of that energy and mood. And when I say intuitively, I mean I had no reference image or anything specific in my mind. I was just seeing where the painting took me. And there's some great books about Joan Eardley with amazing images of her art, and I'll leave information about those below in the description, as well as a link to a short video about her that I found really inspirational. And you can search her name online and see much more about her and her art. So honestly, changing directions like this is something I think more of us could give ourselves permission to do. Sometimes we get really invested in trying to fix a painting, especially ones that we're not loving, and it just creates more pressure. But when we step back and say, okay, what else could this become? That's usually when something new and better starts to happen. And, there's nothing wrong with letting go of the original idea. It's not a failure. It's just part of the creative process. So pivoting, that doesn't mean we're giving up. It just means we're staying open to the possibilities. So in this painting, I was using those three colors I was referring to: the bright aqua green, the yellow ochre, and the alizarin crimson. The yellow and the crimson I use in landscape paintings. I've used them many times in the past, along with ultramarine blue, if I can say that correctly. And those give you some really strong base colors to do a landscape. But throwing in that bright aqua green, I just couldn't imagine it. So that's really kind of when I was playing with that original abstract, I started seeing that, those could work together, but I wasn't sure when I started shifting to this landscape if I could make that work. And I was pleasantly surprised that the amount of different colors, even kind of a violet color, really worked. And I could create a lot of variety with this color palette. There is one little spot in the upper left, kind of along the horizon. You can see kind of a yellow, and that is that cadmium yellow from the spray paint. So while I'm saying I'm using these three, base color palette, there is a little bit of that is showing through, and I allowed that to stay because that was part of that underpainting when I shifted, and that was part I wanted to show up. And I'll show you a close up of that. You'll still be able to see a little bit of texture from the spray paint and everything I put in there. So if you ever find yourself stuck, try playing with colors that feel weird to you, or take a painting in a totally different direction. Let yourself explore. You never know where your painting is going to take you unless you let it. And we're sometimes our own worst enemies. We will stay with something till we have a surface full of mud, and that's okay. That's part of the process too. But be open to shifting and pivoting and trying something different. So I went ahead and started adding a few little spots here where I was adding flowers. So it just gave kind of the illusion in that foreground that these were plants and just a variety of textures and colors in there. And I'll show you at the end, there is still a little spot right above the yellow where you can see a little of the newsprint peeking through in the sky. And I'll show you a close-up. I'm not sure how well it's going to show up, but I can see it right now. And I wanted some of that to peek through. So, I think traditionally you would probably cover all that up, but I wanted some of the history of that other painting to be involved in this. And I'll show you some close-ups of the foreground here, as well as some of those areas that are peeking through from the underpainting coming up. So if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those in the comment section. So here are some close-ups there, and there's the newsprint. You can barely see the words in there. And I'll show you the final painting here, and then I'll also show you another version of that's a little more expressive and wild. So thanks for watching, and keep on painting.